Hello everybody. I had a different plan for this video, but then we got the rules for Regulation G, and I saw a lot of people talking about the restricteds. So this time I decided to not talk about the restricteds, and we're going to talk about some Pokemon I think will be popping up because of the restricteds. It's a bit of a difference. So I'm actually going to structure, this is completely improv by the way, so I'm going to structure this video into 3 parts. You'll be able to see the parts. The first part is going to be the change to YouTube. Then we're going to go over into what a singleton restricted format is, and then we're going to get into the Pokemon. So first off, as I said before, I'm a college student and I graduate this year. Which means as much as I love playing Pokemon, much as I love entertaining y'all, I might have to stop with the videos. I am going to Indianapolis Regionals, so if you're also going to Indianapolis Regionals and you want to hit me up on socials or something, I'd love to get together and just talk and stuff. That being said, other than planning for regionals and, you know, planning for graduation, I'm really busy, so I'm not sure if I can keep this up. I originally was like getting down to the bottom of my tank, but maybe because Regulation G is picking up, I might put more effort into it. But it's really a balance of having my own social life, doing well in school, and also making videos and doing voice acting. So I just need a better balance of that. So if I don't do a video every week, or maybe I do like 3 videos a month at random intervals, please don't be surprised. And I do want to pump out videos, and I still want to do videos, but I think the schedule might change, especially for the last month I'm in school. Now that we've gotten into this part, if you're listening to this, we've gotten past that. So we're going to talk about singleton restricted format. I personally have not had too much time. Sword and Shield was when I really got into competitive. I got into competitive at Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, Sun Moon, but I didn't really participate in restricted, and when I did, it was double restricted. So what is single restricted, and why is it so interesting? With double restricted formats, you have a flexibility on your restricted Pokemon. So what this means is that you can have maybe like one powerful restricted, and maybe you can have one restricted that's more of a support mon. So in double restricted, let's say this wasn't a thing, but you could go Zacian and Zamazenta, and you could have Zacian tear through teams, and you can have Zamazenta use Hull and support your Pokemon while being really bulky. A really common use was, which I'm going to get into why, it's what we're doing, or one of the Pokemon I think, it's Dark Flying, so you'll probably guess. Yveltal, which is not in this game, and Groudon was an archetype, so much so as also like Lunala and Palkia. Because you could run your Zacian or your Palkia or your Groudon as your like super attacking Pokemon that does a lot of damage, and then you can have a bulky restricted that can do a lot of damage, but mostly is focused more on defense and keeping your team alive. Now that you have a single restricted though, a lot of those side restricteds won't get used often, so you won't probably be seeing as much Lugia, as much Ho-Oh. We don't have Yveltal this gen. Rest in peace, Tapus and Zerniveltal and Zygarde. We love you so much, but unfortunately, you did not make it into the Nat Dex. But yeah, stuff like Zamazenta is a great example. You're not going to see a lot of Zamazenta, because if you have a Pokemon with crazy base stats, most of the time, unless it does something cracked on support, you're not going to want it to support. You're going to want it to deal a lot of damage. So you're restricted either for teams you need like an archetype or something to build around, and you're restricted 100% of the time is going to be that. So the restricteds that you can build around is something that's really, really good. Either it has incredible offense, and oh no, we have the ruinous Pokemon to help with that, or it's something like setting terrain and weather. So a lot of the streamers have been putting together tier lists, and you're going to see Miraidon, Koraidon, Kyogre, Groudon, and Neil VGC is saying Calyrex, and that's fair because you can set Psychic Terrain and go Expanding Force, and it's a powerhouse, as well as probably not going to be seeing as much Trick Room, but if we do, you might see a little Palkia, but mostly Calyrex Ice. So in my opinion, those are going to be the strongest Pokemon. You never see Zekrom, Reshiram. Why use the Electric Dragon Zekrom when you can set up terrain? So, with that being said, I have a list of Pokemon, and we're going to go over that. Alrighty, on to the topic. Let's start with Abomasnow. So, a lot of these Pokemon are going to be looking weird, and a lot of Pokemon that might have seen use either now or later, or have never seen use this gen. And there are some reasons why I'm putting them here. So first of all, we're going to start with Abomasnow. Now, what is Abomasnow? I'm going for it. Well, it is a grass ice type, which despite being 4 times weak to fire and 2 times weak to fighting, which you can Terra away from your weakness, you are good into, or at least a good switch into Kyogre and Groudon. You absolutely wall them. In addition, the main ground, or Groudon and Koraidon, both set Sun. Abomasnow is slower than both of them, which means that you'll always be getting up your weather last. This is very, very important because no fire boosteds for Abomasnow and no Orichalcum Pulse for Koraidon, which is huge. Koraidon really needs that Orichalcum Pulse. Sorry, I'm adjusting my mic. I'm having some mic stuff. I could hold it in my hand, but I'd rather have both hands free. Abomasnow has some really good bulk, especially with the snow. And people have used it before, in addition, when Kyogre and Groudon were going rampant. And the reason people were doing that was because, obviously, it resists both and can hit ground super effectively with, like, Blizzard. And then you have, like, a Giga Drain, Energy Ball, Leaf Storm to hit on this Kyogre for. So this is good and all, but people used it without Snow. Now, Snow is cracked. Snow gives you that 1.5 defense boost. You can run Abomasnow with, you can run Assault Vest, you can run Light Clay, it gets Aurora Veil. There's a lot of things you can do with Abomasnow, and Abomasnow is an anti-restricted Pokemon. You want anti-restricted Pokemon in your team because if you only get one restricted, then why not shut down your opponent's restricted with some of your Pokemon? That's going to be a lot of the theme here. So in addition to that, you're also with ice types, you're good into Koraidon, Miraidon, and you just have decent bulk all over. So that's Abomasnow. Getting into Ludicolo, I put up a Ludicolo video, but it's going to be even better. Granted, we do have Ogerpon, but Ogerpon really struggles into Koraidon and Miraidon because it just sucks against dragon types. Ludicolo circumvents that and has another tool. While sure you can run Ogerpon, Wellspring, you can also run Hearthflame and other stuff along with Ludicolo. Ludicolo gets a couple of moves and an ability that you do not get with Ogerpon Wellspring. So you get Fake Out, you get Ice Beam. Why is this so important? Well, you have Swift Swim. Assault Vest makes you tank special moves like a truck. You can also run Life Orb. People do that or have done that. This Pokemon's been historically good in the past, and now that the 2 legendary Pokemon are Dragon type in this gen, and there are no Dynamax, Ludicolo is really good because now you can't avoid Fake Out unless you have Covert Cloak. And most people aren't going to be running Covert Cloak on their legendary. So unless you go against Calyrex, which you outspeed, by the way. Yeah, you outspeed Calyrex. Calyrex Shadow, base 150. I haven't calced this, but yeah. 222. That's a spoiler for everything. I just spoiled everything. So you really only need to get to 222, 111. Yeah, you just need to invest like this much, and then you go special and a little bit of HP. Like, that's not much. And then you have coverage for like every single restricted that's going to be run. So that's why it's good. Hitmontop, Mienshao, Iron Valiant, Gallade are all on here for the same reason, just do different things. Hitmontop has Fake Out, but Wide Guard. Why is this good? Well, it's because about 4 or 5, maybe even 6 of the strongest restricted Pokemon use spread moves. Wide Guard is really incredible in this format because you block Water Spout, you block Origin Pulse, You block Precipice Blades, you block Astral Barrage, you block Glacial Lance. Now, granted, you don't block Koraidon and Miraidon's moves, but you don't really need to because there are other Pokemon. Speaking of Fake Out Wide Guard users that are fighting type, there's one I didn't include, that's Hariyama, but unless you're running Trick Room, you're probably not going to run Hariyama. Mienshao. Mienshao's 105, which means you outspeed Groudon and Kyogre because they're base 90. Inner Focus means you can't be intimidated or faked out, and you can run Fake Out, Wide Guard, Close Combat, and you can run like Knockoff against other Calyrex. And this is very, very, very good, and you run like Focus Sash. Mienshao's never a bad Pokemon, and now that Wide Guard stocks are up, it's really good. Iron Valiant also gets Wide Guard, and so does Gallade. So Gallade's good because it gets Wide Guard and Trick Room. I mean, so does Armarouge, so Armarouge technically could be on this list, but fighting Psychic isn't like weak to a lot of restricteds. It's weak to like Calyrex. Armarouge is weak to ground, it's weak to water. Granted, if you just have Wide Guard, you're good to go. Gallade has Wide Guard Trick Room going for it. Iron Valiant has Wide Guard as well as really strong fairy moves. You can run it physical or special. And you have really good utility moves like Icy Wind. And that gets a bit more important when you take into account that because of Quirk Drive, you can run this with... Actually... This could be a really good counter. You could run like Wide Guard, Icy Wind, Moonblast, and Aura Sphere, and you can run this right next to Miraidon. You just go boop boop, run this. You can run Max afford to do that. Go Sash, and then because you're running Max and going with the Sash with Koraidon or Miraidon, actually you'd probably, because you're running it next to Miraidon, right? You'd probably run this physical. So yeah, you go minus special, and then you go Wide Guard, Icy Wind, Close Combat, and Spirit Break. And that would be a speed control, but also an offensive option with Miraidon. Now, speaking of Pokemon that haven't been used, we're going to get into the Dark types. Why is Dark type so good? A, Calyrex, and B, the only restricted that's good against Dark types is Zacian. Granted, we're going to see a lot of Zacian around here, and I guess I haven't really thought of Zacian counters, but you do have Incineroar, which naturally goes against it, and now you have, I mean, a lot of the Intimidators are probably bad against Zacian. Gyarados might be the best one because you're honestly not going to run Arcanine, and if you run Hisuian Arcanine or Incineroar, you're going to lose to Sacred Sword or Close Combat. So these two Pokemon have different niches, and we'll get into why Wo-Chien. Wo-Chien's a very spicy pick, but I've run some calcs, and I think it could be good. Anyways, you can basically run standard Light Clay set. You go Spirit Break. You go Screens. Just the Screens. And you go like Thunder Wave. You can go Fake Out. Swiss Army Knife, you're Dark Fairy, so you're only weak to Zacian. You pretty much wall every other legendary. You can be Speed Control, you can be Screens. You just help with the team. Now, this was used in a single restricted format, and I'll tell you why. You're going to want to Terra Dark this, because Yveltal did the similar thing where you run like insane amounts of bulk, maybe some... Or actually, no, you don't even need to run. I forgot the set I had for this, but it's a neutral set. You can run Sirius on this. And the reason I'm saying you should and can run Sirius is you do something like this. You run like Terra Dark, you run the Assault Vest, you're incredibly bulky. Unfortunately, you don't have Oblivion Wing, but you do have Air Slash. And then you run the same three moves Yveltal ran, which is, well, not the same because you have Fiery Wrath. Yveltal doesn't do that. So you have Spread Move Fiery Wrath. You have Snarl. So you have two spread moves that are very good at damage. And then you have Sucker Punch. And when you Terra Dark, you're Dark on Dark as well with this. You're going to do a decent amount of damage. You have the Berserk boost. And you also just have Air Slash. So this set, it was Oblivion Ring Dark Pulse with Yveltal. But it's the same concept where goal 1 is to eat hits and then dish back damage, or to just snarl your opponents down to 0. Other than that, that's kind of the concept of this Galarian Moltres. But you can run Nasty Plot, I guess. But I'm not sure I'd see as much success in that, because just legendaries are stronger nowadays. That being said, King of Support Pokemon, Wo-Chien. Wo-Chien, I'm saying might be good because... And here's why. Because... you lower attack. You are a Dark and Grass type, which, according to Moxie Boosted, which is true, you have 7 weaknesses, but you have 7 resistances. And your resistances are... What are your resistances? Your resistances are Psychic Ghost, Calyrex, Water, and I guess Water, which is Kyogre, Ground, which is Groudon. I don't know other resists. Electric, Koraidon. But yeah, you resist a decent amount of moves. You are weak to Fairy, so you're weak to Zacian. You'll have to remember that. And what else? You're weak to Zacian. I don't really know what else you're weak to. Just y'all guys. And I guess you're weak to Koraidon. But that's why you Terra Fairy. So you Terra Fairy in front of Groudon and in front of Koraidon. And if you run Wo-Chien with another Weather Setter, which, shock, you can run Wo-Chien Kyogre. Kyogre has really good defense, HP and defenses, and decent physical defense. So Kyogre Wo-Chien can very much work well. And it doesn't hinder it because Kyogre is a special attacker. You can also run this if you want next to Calyrex Shadow. Calyrex Shadow is decently bulky, and you can just not with the hits. Granted, you probably want to run Chi-Yu, but this calc right here, if you can turn the sun off, if your opponent Terra Fire Heat crashes with Groudon or close combats with Koraidon, you live. Like, I'm actually gonna do the calc right now. It was so Wo-Chien, defensive leftovers. You only need 4 and bold. You only need 4 and bold, and then you go to like Groudon. And the thing is, you don't even need rain. You don't even need rain for this. We're gonna go. Yeah. You don't even need rain for this, because like. Yeah, so this is how much. 252 adamant. So that's calcable. That's like not a ton of investment. Like max HP and 76, and you just dump the rest in special. You live in the sun, heat crash. And then if they Terra Fire, as if you turn the sun off, you still live that. So you always live a hit from Groudon, which is nice. Now if we go to Koraidon, I'm going to just go 252 Adamant again. And then we're going to go Collision Course. So yeah. Collision Course does that much because of the sun. But if you can take away the sun, again, 116 also isn't terrible. I mean, if you just go like this, you can even just add 4/4. Like, you live easily as long as you can turn weather off, which shouldn't be hard to do. You should pretty much always run a weather setter in this format, whether it be manual or ability-wise. Turn it off, and KO you. Terra Fairy, oof, that's nothing. So yeah, Wo-Chien I feel like might have a place in the meta, but I don't know at this point. Next we're gonna go Thundurus. Thundurus has not seen a lot of play, but people will probably run Tornadus. but still Thunder Wave. Oh, here's why you run this. Ready? Special attackers are back. Special attackers weren't gone, but with Calyrex and with other stuff, Eerie Impulse just destroys teams. And then you can also go Rain Dance, and then you can either go Wild Bolt, Thunder, or Thunderbolt. Anything works. And with Prankster, you can run the Speedy. You're probably going to run it bulky, not max HP, but you get what I mean. I use this. I don't know if you want a team report on this. It was a while ago, but you can comment it. 2022 Sword and Shield Milwaukee Regionals. I got a top half, I believe. And I used a Swordfish team that had Seismitoad because it fell out of favor, and I brought it back. I had Bulky Thundurus, and I had a Serena on it that, in hindsight, is still one of my, not like biggest regrets, but it's like something I didn't calc for. But anyways, the team did fine. We had Thundurus on it. Thundurus good with Citrus Berry. You can run Covert Cloak now. Granted, Fergraph is around, so you just be careful of that, but I mean, you can always run Moltres Galarian or something. Iron Bundle. We're getting to the booster Pokemon. So, Fluttermane has been really good because, and Raging Bolt, and Walking Wake and Gouging Fire. Not as much Gouging Fire for this reason, but you could set up the Sun with Torkoal. Torkoal's a very good Sun setter. You set it up, you could go Trick Room, and you go Photosynthesis. Pincurchin was our only electric terrain setter this gen until we got the legendaries, and that's not good, especially because we had two Sandstorm setters, we had 2 Sun setters, we have 2 Hail setters. For terrain, we got 2-ish, because Rillaboom and then Arboliva, but we got 1, 2 because of both Indeedys, and then Weezing was our Misty. So we don't have good Misty, we don't have good Electric, but that changes because Koraidon has an ability that sets up electric terrain and powers it. So now these Pokemon, other than Iron Valiant, are going to be back. People are going to run Iron Bundle because Iron Bundle, you go Focus Sash, you go Max, you bada bing bada boom. You can honestly, I'd recommend running Freeze Dry, Encore, Icy Wind, Protect. I don't recommend running Hydro Pump, especially because Ice and Freeze Dry hits everything you need it to. The only thing Hydro Pump would hit that you would want for super effective damage is Rock and Fire types, and you don't really need that. So yeah, I feel like this set's going to pop up a lot. You're just going to see it do lots of Icy Wind. I was going to put a Regieleki on this list, but Iron Bundle's just increasingly better. The next 2 are kind of my favored picks. That's what I'll call it. I'll call it my favored picks. But I have a really good set of Iron Treads. Iron Treads is never like a bad Pokemon, but it just hasn't seen any use. But now, don't ask what you can do for Iron Treads. Ask what Iron Treads can do for you. And the reason I'm saying this is because with Iron Treads, you have a decent speed stat. You can either go speed booster. You can either go speed booster or you can go attack booster. In addition, you get ground move. It recently got buffed with high horsepower. I used this with Latias and Latios, and it did really well. You can Earthquake spam. And I'll tell you why its ground type's really, really, really helpful later on. But you also have Iron Head. You have speed control with Rock Tomb, because that's a thing. You're good into So you are a booster Pokemon. You're good into Fluttermane. You're decent in some other stuff. You get speed control. You also get Volt Switch, which is boosted in the terrain, and also switches you out. So this isn't the definitive set, obviously, but Assault Vest is really good. You could run Protect and like a Clear Amulet. That also works. I'll recommend Clear Amulet and Life Orb for Iron Boulder, but This basically takes care of fairy types that Miraidon would be bad against. In addition, with its ground type, you can afford to run Parabolic Charge on your Miraidon if you really want to, and you lead Treads Miraidon and you go Parabolic Charge. That's a really fun combo because it's spread and you heal and you don't affect your own Iron Treads. Next is Iron Boulder. We've seen a lot of Iron Boulder sets. We've seen some usage, but now that Quirk Drive can be activated for free, I can see this thing go Life Orb. I can see this thing go Clear Amulet. You run like Max, or like Max. You can go Attack Booster. You can go Speed Booster, and you just go ham. You can Close Combat. Mighty Cleave is really good because it means your opponent's Pokemon that are not... Sorry, let me rephrase this. Your opponent's Pokemon that are not resistant to rock types can't protect. And Mighty Cleave doesn't get affected by Wheezing. I doubt Wheezing will be used, but if Calyrex's ability still works the same way it did last gen, then we might have some Calyrex Wheezing teams appear with like Calyrex, Wheezing, some proto Pokemon that don't need their abilities and just stuff like that. Wheezing's going to be used. I just haven't figured it out. And finally, we have Ditto. This is where I'd also talk about Shedinja, but Shedinja isn't in the game. Shedinja gets infinitely better in restricted formats, although with Miraidon it might not be. Anyways, Ditto. Why is Ditto here? Because you've probably never seen Ditto if you started in Scarlet and Violet, because no one in their right mind uses Ditto. You just use 6 good Pokemon. And that's where Ditto comes in, because this is a single restricted format. Even in double restricted formats, people run this thing. So, ask you a question. You have 4 good Pokemon. You have 1 restricted. You need a 6th slot. But you want something that can hit hard or be whatever when you need it to be. So what do? The answer is steal your opponent's restricted. Because if you can steal your opponent's restricted, and you can also run Choice Scarf on it, or any item you want. Some people run Focus Sash, some people run Citrus Berry. Choice Scarf's the more... I'll get to why Choice Scarf's so good. But if you can steal your opponent's restricted, that's really good. Because then your opponent's facing 2 restricteds, and when you have 2, and they only have 1. Granted, you'll be playing with a very mediocre HP stat with one of your restricteds, but that doesn't matter when you're Ditto, because Ditto copies all the other stats. And why is that good? The answer is Choice Scarf. If your opponent is running, this is where it gets fun. If your opponent is running Zacian, Zamazenta, any of the other forms of Palkia, Dialga, or Giratina, you get that form and the Choice Scarf. People ran this in Zacian formats because what's worse than a +1 attack Zacian is a +1 attack +1 speed Zacian. That's really powerful. And granted, if you have Choice Scarf, well, what happens when you copy your opponent's Calyrex? Or you could speed tie with your opponent's Kyogre, or there's just a lot of things you can do. Because having your opponent's Pokemon but faster is really, really good. So yeah, I'm just gonna go over these real quickly, just in case you forgot. We have Weather Abusers / Resistances. We have Wide Guard Abusers, number 2. 3 is your bulky Dark type. 4 is Thundurus, 5 is Proto Pokemon, and 6 is Ditto. So those are the types of things I think will be really good. And I know this isn't like an in-cart thing, but I do plan on, when I have free time, so possibly this weekend, I plan on making a Reg G team. But yeah, that'll be it from me. Thank you so much for sticking to the end. And thank you so much for taking your time. I'll post videos when I can. If I can't, oh well. And there are videos on the screen right now, but I mean, if you want to watch Reg F, go ahead. If you want to watch Reg G, I actually personally recommend other YouTubers at this point. But yeah, stay tuned for my first Reg G video, and I will see you all next time.